We've got yet another amazing development in the rising world of what's called techno populism. UFC president and ultra Trump ally Dana White has just been appointed to the board of Meta in what is the latest signal that Facebook is indeed going full MAGA. This is incredible stuff. Now, Mark Zuckerberg himself made the announcement on Facebook welcoming Dana White to the board, excited about what they're going to be accomplishing in 2025 and the like. Zuckerberg's a big fan of the UFC. He's often sparred with UFC fighters. In fact, in November 2023, he actually tore his ACL training for an MMA fight. So he's clearly a fan, and he's befriended Dana White as a result. But even CNN is recognizing that something much deeper is happening here. Just a few weeks back, Facebook got rid of their ultra-leftist head of global affairs, this guy named Nick Clegg, who, as I understand, was very much behind the online censorship that Facebook has inflicted on content creators like yours truly. They got rid of that left-wing guy and replaced him with, if you can believe it, they replaced him with a Trump ally, a fellow by the name of Joel Kaplan, a pro-MAGA Republican. So Meta's been moving toward a more MAGA-friendly executive team over the last several weeks. And then, of course, Zuckerberg ended up traveling to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring in late November. You all remember that. And all of this as he was announcing that he was a libertarian. He was done with the woke left, and he was going full-blown libertarian. And to make it even sweeter, he just announced that he's done with these ultra-woke fact-checkers. So Facebook will no longer be using professional fact checkers that are just woke liberal activists. Instead, they're going to replace them with X-style community notes, which would be great because, well, then all the videos that Facebook woke censors deleted from us might actually come back. Well, time will tell. Regardless, even the ultra liberals over at MSNBC are recognizing that Zuckerberg appears to be going full MAGA, and he's turning Meta into a thoroughly pro-Trump social media platform. Meta is going MAGA. Now, I know we can all be very, very cynical about this, right? That would be quite easy. We could all think, I think quite rightly, that Zuckerberg is just trying to cover his ass, right? Given how Facebook pimped itself out to the deep state over the last several years. He openly admitted on the Joe Rogan show that Facebook worked directly with FBI agents to censor information that was damaging to the Biden campaign and to the establishment, most especially involving the Hunter Biden laptop back in 2020. Zuckerberg confessed as well to a congressional committee that Facebook worked together with the Biden-Harris administration to deliberately censor the American people. In fact, it's even worse. Miranda Devine of the New York Post reported that Facebook actually spied on the private messages and data of American users and then in turn reported that data to the FBI if the messages that Americans were sending on Facebook constituted what Facebook execs called anti-government or anti-authority sentiments. This according to sources within the Department of Justice. According to the New York Post bombshell report, under the FBI collaboration operation, somebody at Facebook would red flag these supposedly subversive private messages, transmit them in redacted form, I kid you not, to the domestic terrorism unit at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. I mean, this is insane stuff. So obviously, it would seem that Zuckerberg has a lot to answer for to this new incoming administration in terms of what he's been doing with Facebook over the last 8 years or so. Clearly bringing in Dana White, a very close friend and confidant to Trump, would be part of the cover of his behind for sure. But that said, something even more profound, I think, is happening here. Something that signals that we really are entering into a new conservative age unlike anything we ever imagined, and even Meta is jumping on board of that. But first, gang, I do want everyone to know that if you're finding yourself in the painful position of owing back taxes? Yuck. I mean, we've got some patriots here that are here to help you. The IRS is currently on its way to making everybody pay up. They've hired thousands of new agents. They sent over 5 million pay-up letters in 2024 alone. But if you're dealing with this mess, I want to connect you with a real, tangible solution. Don't give up your rights or deal with them alone. You know the IRS is not your friend. Let Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, save you the time and money you deserve to keep. They've saved Americans over $1 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B in back taxes, and have the skills needed to secure you the best possible deal. So we're talking from a few $1,000s to $10 million, from business to personal taxes. Let Tax Network USA restore your good standing so you could strengthen your financial foundation. When your situation is secure, you become the pillar of strength that our nation needs. Click on that link below or visit them at tnusa.com/Turley. What's really happening here with Meta is that we're seeing the triumph of what is called techno populism, where particularly internet technologies are emancipating more and more people from the old institutions and structures of a dying and waning globalist order. Now, we've been talking about this ever since Elon Musk purchased Twitter a couple of years back for the express purpose of restoring free speech and saving civilization, right? Musk, of course, sees free speech as a pillar of Western civilization, and he saw free speech radically assaulted by globalist institutions, which, of course, included Facebook. As we saw, Facebook workers were intimately intertwined with the deep state, the FBI in particular, such that what was posted on Facebook came under the control and manipulation of the globalist establishment. But what Zuckerberg and the managerial elites in our nation didn't seem to realize is two concurrent dynamics happening side by side over the last few years. First and foremost, our elite, our political, economic, and corporate elite, of which Zuckerberg is part, they occupied a cultural space that became radically removed from the cultural space of the vast majority of the population. That's exactly what we saw back in November, right? That's absolutely key to get in all of this. The scholar Matt Goodwin is actually, he talks about a similar dynamic happening in the UK among the university indoctrinated elite there. So these are people, these elite, they basically all grow up in the same privileged neighborhoods nationally. They all go to the same privileged schools and universities. They all fellowship with one another. They all end up in the same privileged, occupations and positions, lawyers, CEOs, politicians. And what's happened is that as these privileged positions and occupations are situated within the confines of liberal globalist structures and dynamics, the cultural space they occupy has shifted radically to the left. And if you don't know, this is largely because of what's known as emancipatory politics. Emancipatory politics is the political dynamic that's inherent in globalism. So globalism naturally leans left because globalism seeks to emancipate populations, free them, as it were, from the confines of their traditional customs and cultures. And the reason is not because they care about human rights or anything like that. It's because such customary and cultural traditions tend to disrupt consumerist dynamics, which are the dynamics that underlie all globalist processes and systems. So globalism is a vested interest in transforming all of us into radical consumers, but that requires emancipating us from the confines of traditional culture and custom that stand in the way of turning us into blind consumers. And so, having been caught up in these globalist dynamics that involve emancipatory politics by virtue of their privileged positions, our elites have shifted radically to the left, right? We've seen that. Remember, I mean, if you think about Wall Street was always supposed to be right wing during the Reagan era, right? Everybody making money, all the rich were supposed to be so hardcore right. Now they're all hardcore left, and it's largely because of these emancipatory dynamics inherent in globalism. So our elites have shifted radically to the left, but in doing so, they've pulled all of the positions they occupy, all the institutions they control, way to the left with them. So this is why our politics and our corporate boardrooms and our big tech and our big pharma, this is why they've all shifted so far to the left, particularly the woke left. And what that shift has done is it's alienated our elite increasingly away from the vast majority of the population. Can I give you an example, a perfect illustration of what I'm talking about here? I want to play you a clip of Scott Jennings on CNN just yesterday, patiently explaining to a completely disillusioned media elite that the American people simply don't give a rip about January 6th. Take a look at this.
Scott, in a political sense, is it how we got here? Is interesting, and you can see the evolution. You can play all the sound bites from the days after when you heard Republicans blaming Donald Trump, some being short of saying he should be impeached, saying he should be held accountable. And 4 years later, we are here. It is a stunning political comeback attributed to how Trump played it afterward, how Democrats played it afterward, or something else?
Well, I think it's some mixture of everything. But to me, the big message is that in the United States, the people decide. And because of the disastrous 4 years that came after Donald Trump, the people decided to return Donald Trump to power. And that's fundamentally what happened. They looked at what happened on January the 6th. They looked at all the things Democrats claimed about Donald Trump. And they also analyzed every single decision that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made. And they delivered Donald Trump a convincing victory 4 years later.
It is tough, though, Scott, because when you say the people decide, that's what people tried to make sure didn't happen on January 6th, was allowing the people to decide.
The machinery turned. It was a terrible...
The lack of acknowledgement of how bad it was in the aftermath.
I mean, I think a great many people have acknowledged it, but also what happened that day. The machinery turned. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden became the president. He had one of the worst terms of any U.S. president, and then the people scrambled back to Donald Trump. That is the history of what happened.
Now, again, you'll notice here, you'll notice the massive cultural chasm that clip demonstrates. You've got the elites at CNN, like that anchor, who think that J6 was the single worst assault on our democracy ever committed in the history of the cosmos. And then you've got everybody else, who, while they certainly aren't happy with what happened on J6, they don't see it anywhere near the way the cultural leftist elite want to see it, because, of course, they're weaponizing it, right? We all know that. The cultural elite are purposely weaponizing J6 so as to give some kind of political leverage and advantage to the Democrats. We all know that, right? So but what you just saw there is a perfect illustration of the kind of cultural gap that's opened up between the people and our increasingly aloof political class. So there's this cultural alienation. There's this cultural divide between the people and the political class. But what is so key to get here is how the emerging new technologies, particularly the internet, are giving the people the ability to bypass these old privileged institutions like CNN in a manner comparable to the way email and texting bypass the old post office. And with that cultural divide increasingly so stark, the vast majority of the population has left the old privileged positions behind. So that's exactly what's called techno populism. The new technologies allow the people to bypass the old globalist institutions in a way comparable to how email and texting bypass the post office. It's why CNN's ratings are so abysmal. Internet technologies have largely emancipated populations from any reliance on the old liberal structures like the mainstream media or Facebook for that matter. I think that's why they're trying to get their act together on this and jump on the train before it's too late. They all used to dominate and control what was allowed in terms of public opinion, but now with the new technologies, public opinion is emancipated and allowed to speak freely. Zuckerberg appears to be figuring this out in a Johnny-come-lately fashion. He's realizing, he's looking at the unparalleled success of X. He's realizing that the future isn't aligning with big tech and big government. It's actually the opposite. So if you're truly a libertarian, this is your moment, Mark. The future is all about emancipating ourselves in virtually every way from big government and woke globalist industrial structures that have alienated themselves culturally from the vast majority of the population who, because of the internet-based technologies and our hyperconnectivity, are no longer reliant on those woke globalist structures. So that's the techno-populist significance behind all of this. Now, again, I'm just going to be honest. I don't fault Zuckerberg here. I don't. I know we can. I don't. CNN is reporting that he is very clearly, he and his fellow executives of Meta are becoming very right wing. That's the assessment of even MSNBC. It's easy for us to be cynical about that, in that, well, they're just opportunists who are trying to ride the Trump wave, or at least protect themselves from Trump's retributive wrath, given what they've been doing with the deep state over the last 8 years. But both can be true, gang. Both can be true. They can be opportunists who also clearly see where the winds are blowing. The deep state is about to be destroyed. The deep state is about to be dismantled by Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and RFK and Tulsi and Pete Hegseth. It's about to be absolutely decimated. So there's no future hanging out with the FBI anymore, censoring material. And besides that, they see the winds blowing in the direction of techno-populism. And, Meta is perfectly situated to benefit from that new societal and cultural direction, just like X has been able to do, and Truth Social and the like. So, welcome aboard. As far as I'm concerned, welcome to the party, pal, as Bruce Willis would say in the best Christmas movie ever, right? The world is changing. I mean, it took long enough. It took you guys long enough to recognize it, you Facebook dolts. But come along, breathe the fresh air of freedom. It really does look like the old globalist structures are collapsing. Big tech, once the biggest ally of the deep state, is now officially joining the growing MAGA movement and entering into a new era of civilizational populism and flourishing freedom.